This is my documentary for First Hour Honors American Lit for the What It Means to Be an American project. I hope you enjoy learning about me as well as yourself and what it means to be an American. This entire program is non-scripted, so it has a very human reality aspect to it. I hope you enjoy.
Lily, what does it mean to be an American?
An American is somebody who lives in America.
Dan. Can you talk to me about how the definition of American has changed over time?
What?
How the definition of an American has changed over time?
Well, I would say that the Declaration of Independence defines what it is to be an American. That we have founding first principles that are in the Declaration, and that people that believe in the Declaration of Independence are Americans. So my definition, which is probably not one that most people would share, is that anyone that believes in those founding first principles, the rule of law, unalienable rights, limited government, the social compact, equality, the right to alter and abolish an oppressive government, what's contained in the Declaration, and we've embodied in America and our Constitution. If you believe in those things, then you're an American. When we first declared independence, although anyone that believed in those things I consider to be American in the country itself, the people that were able to live that were very limited. They were mostly white male men who, obviously males and men are the same, white men who owned property. And then the franchise got expanded during the Jacksonian era, and so people that could live that ideal included all men that were white, and some freed men that lived in places where there wasn't racial discrimination. And then after the Civil War, we expanded it to include all races. And then after the suffrage movement, for the suffragette movement for women, then we expanded it to include women. And even then we were still not quite living up to it because of Jim Crow and other discrimination against women, but we've made huge strides. So that is how I would say things have changed.
Mom, what does it mean to be an American now?
Well, I think being an American now is being, I think people think it's that they have a sense of freedom to be whatever they might decide that they want to be, and that the government will be infringing upon their ability to make progress in their lives. So kind of less government interference and more personal freedom.
I would define an American as someone who is obviously a citizen of the United States, has either lived here their entire life or has immigrated and has been naturalized as a United States citizen, but also as someone who believes in the ideals of the United States. As my dad mentioned earlier, the first principles of equality, revolution, unalienable rights, the limited government, etc., are really the basis of our nation. And if you don't believe in what makes America America, I don't really think you can define yourself as being an American. Also, if you are someone who has just immigrated to the United States but hasn't been naturalized yet, I still think you can consider yourself to be an American if you have abandoned the ideas of your previous society and embrace ours. Because America really comes back down to those first principles. It doesn't have to do anything with technology or our social media or our famous actors and actresses. It really comes down and back to those first principles. And if you believe them and embrace them and live them out through your daily life, I really do think you can consider yourself to be an American. After reading both The Catcher in the Rye and The Scarlet Letter, I spent some time trying to understand what those novels not only meant as a piece of literature, but whether or not I could gain some insight onto what it meant to be an American as a whole. So starting with The Catcher in the Rye, I noticed that it was a very booming industrial society where people were making lots of money, but above all else just wanted to gain success. And although I think Holden wants to gain success, his rebellious nature really just wants to seek adventure and abandon all those preconceived notions from his society and from his parents. And I think that this really reflects on how Americans strive to be different from the rest of the world. America is the land of the free and home of the brave, and that's drastically different from other societies around the world. And I think that in an extreme way, Holden reflects the idea of freedom. And that's probably the biggest thing that Americans value above all of our other first principles is really freedom. And the fact that Holden gets away from society, doesn't want to conform to his society, really embraces how America wanted to be different from the rest of the world in a better way and embrace freedom. On the other hand, I think that The Scarlet Letter contrasts what America is today and really reflects what America was during that pre-revolution, pre-constitution era in America. After reading The Scarlet Letter, I noticed that it was a very strict Puritan society, and although I think that kind of goes back to and embodies what America is today in the fact that we really do believe in the law, that we expect that our citizens follow the law and do have punishments for it, I think that the fact that the society was very religious and completely non-secular is the exact opposite of what America is today. Today in America, we are very inclusive of all religions and don't let one particular religion govern us, although that's what America was like during that pre-Constitution era. It wasn't until the Constitution that we decided that we wanted the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble that we have now. And The Scarlet Letter really does a great job of displaying what life was like during that era. On another note, I think that Hester displays characteristics of what an American is on a whole, not just during that era, but even today. I think those characteristics that she presents really do transcend time. I think that she displays the characteristics of a hardworking person who gives back to the community, even if that community is shunning her. She still gives back in many ways. And she even does everything in her power to support her child and raise Pearl to the light, which really reflects what the American dream is. I believe that the American dream is something that embodies the idea that you can have an awful life, but if you work hard and give it your all, you can make a better life for your child. And I think that's what Hester is really displaying. But on an overall note, I think that the Puritan society that Hester comes from really reflects the opposite of what America is today, and also shows how far we've come. Due to my love of American history and American culture, I've actually had the opportunity to read both of the documents we read in class, as well as many other documents from revolutionary writers during that time period. But it was after seeing these documents in a different light, in a more sense that they were trying to embody what America is and what it means to be an American as a whole, that I was really able to gain insight into both of those themes. So starting with the document of Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, performed and written by Patrick Henry, I actually was able to see the extreme sense of the concept of what it meant to be an American, even though there wasn't really a worldwide concept of what it meant to be American during that time. He still had one. And he proclaimed that an American was someone who's willing to stand up for their freedoms and fight and even die for them. He wasn't just going to sit idly by and let the British oppress him, but he was going to take up arms and dissolve all the political bands that tied them to England. And I think that's something, that principle of freedom still really drives home today in America. It's probably the most important value that Americans hold. In 2001, when the terrorists attacked the World Trade Center in New York, Americans didn't just sit idly by. We took action. We went after the perpetrators of the crime and eventually killed him. And I think that really showed to the world, even then as well as continuing now, that we are willing to fight for our freedom and even die for it. We're not going to sit idly by and let others oppress us. Looking at the other document, the Declaration of Independence, I've read it probably close to 30, if not 50 times over the course of my lifetime, but I was able to get a sense that Americans had real in-depth reason for declaring independence from Britain. It wasn't just, oh, we're being oppressed by the British, so we're going to rebel. It was literal literal actions that they were oppressing us by. They weren't representing us in Parliament, quartering troops in our home, unfairly taxing us. It was the accumulation of all those actions that really made up the Declaration of Independence, which normally I would have just skipped over. But I think it really embodies what it meant to be an American then and what it means to be an American as a whole even today.
What do you need?
Well, I just wanted to learn like a little bit about do you know anything about what their lifestyle is like when they first moved to the United States?
When they came to the United States, Grandma Rosalie was 18. Grandpa Sam was, I think he was around 10. And they came from Sicily. They were very poor. Grandpa left his parents behind in Sicily, and I don't know who he went to live with, but I do know they were very poor.
Okay.
And Grandpa Sam, ended up doing a lot of odd jobs. And, supporting himself as when he got to be a teenager with a lot of different odd jobs. And Grandma Rosalie went to live with her sister in Detroit. And they knew each other in Sicily. And so when they saw each other again, they wanted to get married. But Grandma Rosalie's sister didn't want them to get married. They wanted her to marry a man from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So her and Grandpa Sam eloped.
Oh, wow.
and back in those days, which were probably the 1930s, that was unheard of. It did not. They lived in real old houses that were just really had no central heating. They were very, very poor.
After having an in-depth discussion with my grandma about my family heritage and how my great-great-grandparents came up from Sicily, I've gotten a better understanding of all the struggles that they faced and how it directly impacts how my life is today. They, as you heard earlier, lived in a very torn-down part of Detroit and didn't really have the same opportunities that I have. My great-grandfather did all these odd jobs in order to support his 7 children, which is completely amazing to me. I can't even imagine. And all the hard work and dedication that they did and faced in order to live the American dream and make their life for their children better than theirs directly impacted my great-grandparents, who did the same for my grandparents, who did the same for my dad, who was doing the same for me. And my lifestyle, I think, is completely opposite from how they originally faced. I have never been in a time where my life has been economically stable, and I live in a very safe neighborhood in a very nice house with great education, and their lifestyle was almost completely opposite. And I thank God every day that I didn't have to live in that time, and thank them for all the struggles that they had to face in order to make my life as good as it is today.
Okay. Thank you.
So Lily, what's a family value that's important to us?
Kindness,
And why do you think it's important to us?
because you should treat other people like you want to be treated.
And that's a good thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would definitely say that my family fits into the constructs of my personal definition of what it means to be an American. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm sure my dad mentioned earlier as well, I believe that an American is someone who believes in the ideals and those first principles from the Declaration of Independence: freedom of equality, unalienable rights, limited government, the social compact, and others. But not just believing them, but also acting them out through our daily lives. And that's where I think my family really does a good job of fitting that definition, is that we don't only believe in the freedom of religion and freedom of speech, we live them out and we show them to the rest of the world.
Before I begin describing what you would see, hear, smell, taste in my community, I think I should come up with a definition of what I define community as, because it might be different from your definition. I would define community as not just the city that I live in or the place where I go to school, but as anywhere that I kind of spend my time. So I spend the majority of my time in Birmingham, Beverly Hills. I live in Beverly Hills, but I go to school in Birmingham. But I would also kind of define it as being all of Metro Detroit, because how I was raised, during the weekend we don't just stay in my house or stay in Birmingham. We kind of like to go to different places like West Bloomfield or Dearborn or Royal Oak or Ferndale. We like to kind of outreach and go to all these different places. So I would kind of define my community as being all of Metro Detroit. But if I were to describe what my community as in Birmingham, Beverly Hills is like, it's a very safe community. Walking down the street, you don't have to worry about people coming up and ganging up on you and stealing your things. It's a very, very safe community. Also, we have very, very good education system. That's one of the reasons why I'm sure my parents decided to live here, is because of the great education system that they're able to give me and my sister. If you were going down the street in downtown Birmingham, you'd see lots of high-end shops, lots of very affluent people just walking around, enjoying their time. It's a very, I would say, upscale American area. You don't see a lot of, although there are fast food places, you don't see lots of people eating at fast food places. It's very trendy, I would say. The food is very, very good. There isn't lots of, it's just a very upscale type place, lots of upscale restaurants. And I think that's really how I would define my community.
Metro Detroit is a very diverse community. There are many different pockets that have many different attributes. So, for example, we live in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills is a very small community. It's about 10,000 people in it. Not a great deal of activity. It's mostly residential. They call that a bedroom community. Not particularly walkable, except for in very small. It's walkable in the sense you can walk around the neighborhoods, but you can't walk down to your grocery store or to your coffee shop or anything like that. So it's not very dense. It's a wealthy area. It has a number of churches and affluent amenities like our swim club. The schools are very good, and of course it borders Birmingham and Bloomfield, and those attributes are pretty much the same, except for in Birmingham there's a downtown and people can walk downtown and do high-end shopping or moderate price shopping.
After talking with my family about how we would describe our community, I decided that I wanted to figure out whether or not it influences my perception of success. So I first started by asking my friend Erin.
Within my school, there's a very competitive atmosphere. A B is considered failing, so it's basically a 4.0 or nothing. Recently, as a senior, applying to college this year, 2 different colleges I thought I wasn't gonna get in because my junior year I only had like a 3.8, and that was a huge like, oh no, I'm going to not get into college. But on a worldwide perspective, a 3.8 is actually really good, I found out. But the atmosphere in which I was raised, it's like you need a 4.0 to be like achieving. Like if here, a 27 is a very low ACT score, which was my ACT score. And you're expected to get like a 30 or 32. And people spend hours studying, which I did not do because I tried to go against the social norm of studying for years. I refused to study for the ACT, refused to open a book anyways. But in like the standard, I think like nationwide is like a solid 18. So you're in first C home, you're being raised in a more like with higher standards.
My community has definitely had a big impact on how I perceive success. In Birmingham, because we're such a wealthy, affluent area, we really put a lot of emphasis on money and the A grade. In Birmingham, the people that are most successful in their business make the most money, and that really transcends down to the citizens and to the children. Children are taught at a very young age that the more money you make, the happier you'll be, and the happier you'll be, the more success that you'll have. And that kind of flow of knowledge is having a really negative impact on the kids, in my opinion. I would much rather be happy and enjoy learning something than always making the most money and always having the A grade. I have become very, very good at studying to the point where I can memorize information for 2 weeks in order to get the A grade on every single test, but not really absorb the information. And I don't really think that's the purpose of school. But at the same time, if I get that A grade, I am praised for my success. And in my brain at the same time, I'm thinking, yay, I got an A on the test. But on the other hand, I didn't actually learn what I was supposed to be learning. But it is due to that emphasis on the A grade and the always getting 100%. That type of influence that Birmingham has, I think, really has changed my perception of what success is. And I've had to mentally try to fight against that, to try to think that no, success is something when I feel a sense of accomplishment. It doesn't just have to be the A grade or the most money or the 100%. Overall, I think I really embrace all of the good things that our community has to offer. I embrace our competitive atmosphere in school. I think that really will work to my advantage when I move to a different area in the world. But I think that I kind of work hard to deflect all of the stereotypes that our community has. I don't like living a cookie cutter lifestyle, and I think that the stereotypes that are put on our community kind of make it seem like we're all the same, and that's not really how I think. I don't really think that's a great way to live your life, is to be so similar to everyone else. And that's really what makes America so unique and so amazing, is that we're all so different. And I think that's really where I kind of try to push away and abandon those ideas from our community. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I don't really see my community as just being the city that I live in, because Beverly Hills is so small. I think of it as almost the entire Metro Detroit area, and even a little bit of Detroit. It's really all of those areas that I reach out to and I spend most of my time in. So overall right now I spend a lot of my time in Birmingham because that's where I go to school and it's so close to Beverly Hills. But because I was raised in Beverly Hills and not Birmingham, I have a different perspective on what it means to either embrace the community or deflect it. When I was little, I went to an all-black preschool, but I never really thought of myself going to an all-black preschool. I just thought that's how the rest of the world was because I was so young. And then for kindergarten, I went to Sacred Heart, which is in a very, very affluent area. It has a lot of people who have big mansions in Cranbrook, and that's where every weekend it felt like I was at a different mansion. And so that was a different sort of atmosphere. And then I went to Covington, where there's people from all different sorts of areas in the Metro Detroit community all together in the same school. well, more like Birmingham, but there were some people from different areas that were kind of unique. And then I ended up going to Seaholm, where everyone seems like they're from Birmingham. So kind of the way that I was raised just had this overwhelming effect of differences. I never went to the same type of school for more than 6 years. And I think that really has put a large influence on me, for lack of a better word, to kind of deflect the stereotypes, the cookie cutter lifestyle that I feel that the rest of the surrounding community, the rest of the Metro Detroit area places on Birmingham because we're so affluent here. And I think that's why I desire so much to be different from those stereotypes, because I haven't lived my life that way. In the most literal sense there is, I am definitely a product of my parents' education. They both ended up going to Wayne State, even though they lived on opposite sides of the country and met and fell in love and then got married and had me. So if they hadn't decided to go to the college that they did, I wouldn't be alive and I wouldn't be a product of their education. But in a more psychological sense, I think that I am also a product of their education, because all of the dedication and hard work that they put into their schooling has really influenced me to do the same. And although it pressures me in a way to kind of live up to their expectations, I don't think it's a bad pressure. It's more of a healthy pressure to try to pressure me to have success and do well. Education has definitely played a leading role in impacting my perception of myself. One way is that I learn about my personality is through different activities that we do at school. When I have an opportunity to be in a group setting, I learn to perceive myself as someone who is a leader and shows responsibility, because I have had to take on those roles in a group. When I do self-projects, I have to learn to use my time wisely and show my ability to follow a plan. And by doing those things and contemplating what it was like in that setting after the fact, that's when I really get a sense of who I am. Also, I learn more about myself through the literature that I get to read in school. And by contemplating on these novels and on these pieces of literature, I can form connections between myself and the characters, find those similarities and differences, and really see how I fit into those situations that the characters get to be a part of, and learn more about myself in the process. For example, after reading and performing the speech, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, I had to step back and ask myself, would I be willing to die for my freedom? And by thinking about those questions, I was able to learn more about myself and see how I would perceive myself as that type of person. Would I perceive myself as someone who's willing to die for their freedom? Or am I someone who says that I would die for my freedom, but at the same time, when given the choice, that I wouldn't do it? Those are the type of things that I get to learn about myself through my education. And I think it's these thoughts about literature and actions that I do every day in school that really have impacted my perception of myself.
Education is definitely something that I find pretty imposing. On any typical night, I may have 2 to 3 hours, if not 4 or 5 hours of homework, along with sports practices and other extracurricular activities. And I think that's really what makes school so monumentous and so important, is that we're not only expected to absorb so much information, but we're also expected to do it along with all of our extracurriculars. And that's something that really, I think, sets school apart from just learning by yourself. That you're expected to go to a higher level of learning, and to be able to get that higher level of learning, you're expected to be able to do all these different things. And I feel like that definition of school kind of conflicts with how I was raised and how I want to pursue my learning. I'm someone who really wants to learning what you want to learn, and I feel like there's very little room for that in school. With this project, it's a perfect example of how I'm able to take something that I've been learning about in school and turning it into a form that I could never imagine doing or would be allowed to do in any other class. It's the reason that I decided to do documentaries, because I want to challenge myself in that way. That's not something that school always allows you to do. I'm someone that believes in doing what you love, and Instead, we're told to do what will get you the best score, taking the easy way out on the project, or just studying and memorizing. And I hope that when I start learning different information outside of college or even in college, that I can learn to kind of distance myself from that memorizing learning and truly get to know what I want to know and enjoy it, because I don't want to memorize things for the rest of my life. I don't think I would enjoy life that way.
In 10 years, I will probably still be in college. I'll be working towards getting a degree in medicine because I want to be an ER doctor. Hopefully, I'll have a job and an apartment for myself. I won't be living with my parents anywhere. Also, I hope that I'll be helping out the community, that I won't just be working towards getting my degree in medicine, which is obviously very important, but also doing some things to help out the community. I hope before I leave high school that I get a chance to go on a mission trip somewhere. Hopefully out of this country, maybe not. Maybe just do one of the service projects at school. But I've always wanted to go on one of those service trips and see other parts of the world that I don't think I get enough opportunity to go see. So I hope that I get a chance to do that while I'm working towards my doctorate. And that's where I see myself in 10 years.
I think that overall, my goals and aspirations are pretty similar to those of my parents. Both my parents ended up going to a graduate school. My dad went to law school to become a lawyer. My mom went to Cornell to go and get her MBA in business. And I think that their choices have really influenced me to make the same type of choices. I've never really seen myself as going to college for only 4 years and then getting a job. I've always kind of seen me as being in school for a very long time and getting the highest degree that I can get and just constantly learning. And that's where I think that we're very similar, is that both my parents really desire to learn and just improve their education as much as they can, has really motivated me to do the same. I think that we're different in the fact that both my parents are kind of on the opposite end of the job spectrum. I'm in medical field and they're kind of off in lawyer and business side, and that's where I think we're kind of different. We've had a lot of lawyers and people in business in my family, but no one's really been in the medical field. My grandma's a nurse, but she only had to go to 2 years of medical school to become a nurse because of the time period that she was in. So I think that most people have kind of just gone towards the lawyer side and the business side of the job spectrum. And I think that's where I've been different. I've kind of wanted to move away from that. I've decided we have too many of those in my family and I just want to do something different. And that's how I think we're similar and different.